the NatickFOSS group, a FOSS user group in Metro West Boston, but recorded here and available on YouTube each month that we meet, typically the first Thursday of a month, and that's what this 7th is. So we're live and we're going to do our best to give a good production. I don't see anybody on the active screen here, the participants as we call everyone who joins us live. There's nobody new in that group, so we will technically forego the top of our agenda, which when we met live and in person, we typically had the opportunity to give newcomers a chance to observe an introductory slide talk. That slide talk continues to be available if you wish to click the link for it. It is still running from our old server. And as we reach the end of our agenda, we'll talk about the possibility of updating this talk, making it more accessible to those who are not actually familiar with FOSS. We made certain assumptions with this talk that people would try it using LibreOffice, which is our preferred suite of tools for writing and doing presentations like this FOSS introductory slide talk. But not everyone who's new to FOSS is particularly tuned into that tool. So we are thinking and working our way through methods to make it more accessible to everybody. But if you're watching us now or later on YouTube, welcome. All right, our main agenda may turn out to be fairly short this month, if only because a lot of our members have been busy with life and things get in our way of preparing for the meetings. For our first topic, the FOSS news, the good news is that Linux as an operating system allows us to do a great deal that everybody else uses another operating system for. And it seems not to be a big deal for those of us who use it, but for years, Linux has been the ugly duckling of the operating systems. You're probably familiar with Windows and Mac OS, maybe with Chrome OS and the Chromebooks from Google. And for the first time, Linux market share has passed 4%, even though it is used in most of all the supercomputers that are out there and 90% at least of the web, which people are thinking of as computing these days. 90% of that web runs on Linux. But in the home and on laptops, that has not been true. Linux is growing, and 4% may be just the beginning, finally. I think almost everybody in our core group uses Linux on a daily basis and occasionally dips into the other operating systems. But here we are trying to give people out in the world a chance to understand our love of Linux. Speaking of our love of Linux, we don't all use the same distribution of the operating system. They're all based on the same technology, but a majority of people tend to use what is known as GNOME for their desktop. The desktop is the appearance of how Linux presents itself to an average user in a visible mouse-oriented click here and get something done desktop. But a few people use Unity and love it. And some of us use KDE's Plasma. Plasma is now in its 5th release. Plasma 5 is what's running on almost everybody's computer who uses the Plasma. But it is nice to see that Plasma 6 has been officially released so that you can now try it. And there is here a report from the KDE group that develops Plasma. And here are the major interface changes. We find that Wayland is now the default for display instead of the aging and somewhat problematic X11. And I've heard that not only is KDE headed that way, but certain distributions of GNOME appear to be moving that way as well. One of the things that has been a sticking point between all the other desktop types and the Plasma group was that Plasma used a single click to launch of a file or open a folder. And nowadays, they have decided that everybody else prefers double clicking to open something. So that is what they've moved to. I can get used to the old way. I am a user of KDE 5, but I'm looking forward to KDE 6. The various other things here you can see. One of the things that I like in this change is that clicking on the scroll bar 50% along will take you to the 50% of the screen or the document that you're in. It used to just scroll down a page or two, making it with a little less clear what was going to happen when you clicked on this sidebar over here. Using the scroll on my computer, I can drag it, of course, as we are used to doing. But on the new version, if I went to this spot on the right here in the middle of my scroll bar, it would just move up a bit like that, and then a bit like that. But on the new one, which this is not, this is Plasma 5, it's Plasma 6 would jump halfway through the document if I went there, to the top of the document if I went there, and so on. And I'm looking forward to that. The reviews that I have seen of the new Plasma include the one by our expert on many things Linux called the Linux Experiment, who produces a weekly YouTube video about changes across the spectrum of different desktops, has an excellent review of Plasma 6, which he has been using for quite a while. And while I don't recommend that we watch it here because it's a long video, and sometimes when we replay videos, we wind up with a bit of confusing overlay, I recommend that you do click through on the KDE Plasma 6 review to hear all the details that he is gushing about. Does anybody else have experience with KDE and want to make, or excuse me, KDE Plasma, as KDE is just the organization that produces the Plasma desktop? Anybody else have comments they want to make on this?
I just want to make one comment, not so much on KDE, but on Fedora. Wayland has been default for several years, although X11 is also available, but may not be available in the future.
And that's apparently the direction that most distributions are heading, because Wayland has a lot of new features that can't be reproduced in the X11 control of displays.
Helga?
Yes, Dick.
Not exactly on KDE, but first of all, quickly on the first topic, the Linux market share.
Yes.
Left out is the fact that Windows OS is greatly decelerating in terms of its popularity. It's way up high, but the shift is interesting. And the second one I picked up is the Linux market share isn't just up. It shot up quickly. The last 8 months have accounted for the last 1%. And I think it's been years to get a 1% increase before that. Things are going on. So that's it. I just wanted to mention, not for KDE Plasma, but I got shifted from Ubuntu Unity, which I've been a great fan of. 2 days ago, I shifted to Linux Mint Cinnamon. It solved several problems I'd been having. And I noticed they also existed under plain Ubuntu. And after I did a reinstall. So something interesting is going on there. And maybe next month I'll be confident and get you up on some of the changes I've been making. I've been told some things can't be done smoothly on Linux Mint. I've been finding ways to do them. So it might be interesting. Thanks.
Very welcome. Bob, you had a comment.
Just about what Dick just said about Linux Mint. I am using Linux Mint Debian Edition, which gets rid of all the Ubuntu components, and it's built on Debian, and it uses the Debian repo. And there are advantages and disadvantages, which I talked about last month. And I have found that the Cinnamon desktop, it has some disadvantages and some advantages. I like Unity for the sidebar and the ease of access of programs. I don't like the fact that Flatpaks have difficulty integrating with that. Whereas you don't have snaps in Mint Debian Edition. Instead, I use Flatpaks, but I have on occasion had to build from source to get a dependency for a Debian package, because Debian is very conservative about including non-free software. So I like Cinnamon, and I think people coming from either Apple or Windows will find it quite familiar.
That is sometimes one of the selling points that people say about KDE's Plasma as well, because the Plasma desktop has a familiar feel to it from a Windows perspective, particularly. I can't speak for the Mac because it's been maybe 25 years since I last did much with a Mac operating system. I did like it at the time, and I can't say that any operating system is a bad operating system. I don't think that's fair to say. I think we just appreciate in the Linux world that we have choices that the Windows community can't get to, and the Mac OS may be restricted from ever seeing, in spite of their otherwise good qualities. We in the Linux world do have our choice of desktops, the way things are displayed, the layouts. We don't necessarily have the same programs available to us that those two other operating systems have. But for many of us, myself particularly included in that many of us, we don't miss those operating systems or the programs that are the staple of their success, primarily because they cost an arm and a leg, and some of them that don't have a cost are crippled. But if you use Linux as your operating system, your underlying approach to computers is yours. You get to decide what you want to do. That's why some of us, and this group I think fits that, we go with our Linux in whatever version we like the best. Okay, I'm going to flip my screen back here to the agenda and see that we're at the FOSS history line. It's not a big deal to almost anybody in the world but the free software people of the Linux persuasion. 35 years ago, on February 25th, which just was a month ago, the GPL, the GNU Public the GNU Public License, or the General Public License, it's been called both, turned our world upside down for how software could be distributed. It requires that you and your friends can all benefit from the software that is available, that you don't have to pay an arm and a leg to get it, that you don't have to leave it as it is, that if you have the ability or the money to pay somebody else, you can have them modify it to do exactly what you want if you have the skill. And the big deal is that you have to then really release your public version under the same license. That's kind of copy left rather than copy right. Yes. I hear a voice. A comment?
Okay. Right. I think she might have norovirus.
Jerry, was that intended for us?
No, my granddaughter is sick, and they're going to take her to the hospital, ER.
Oh, boo.
I think it's a norovirus type thing.
We're all subject to these kinds of moments, unfortunately.
That's correct. I was earlier. Usually put my microphone on mute, but I wasn't this time. Sorry.
That's okay. So many of us use software that is GPL licensed, and many of us are broader in our interpretation of FOSS, which stands for free and open source software. There are other licenses that qualify as FOSS licenses, but some of them are not required to re-release with the same share and share alike. Some of them say, go ahead, do what you want with it. Don't bother to give it back. we of this persuasion of the GPL say, if you benefited, you should let others benefit from your work too. Not everybody agrees with that, but the GPL has successfully lived for 35 years in its various versions, and we hope to see it make 50 or 100 years. Well, some of us won't see the 50 or the 100 years because we're approaching our realities of old age. But maybe our grandchildren will enjoy the 50th and the 100th anniversary of the GPL. Anybody else have comments about licensing while we're here?
I have a big one. Hooray!
Okay.
It's given us so much so quickly by sharing. Not a new concept, but
Yeah.
computers were pretty much built by corporations and they found ways to license everything and keep from sharing. So this acceleration in Linux is awfully
Yeah.
nice.
Yes.
Amen. Okay. Not to leave that big deal behind, but we do have hot software that Dick wants to talk about and a few other pieces that fit right after that. Dick, why don't you go ahead and do your series and then we'll come back to the pieces that fit in between.
Okay.
I'll unshare if that's necessary. Otherwise, I'll click for you.
Okay. First of all, I have two topics that really aren't from me. And this first is one of them. They're both from Mike Cornelison, who's the lead on Photox, invented the thing and still runs it very well for photos. Uh, and he's into quite a few other things as well. He sent me a note, which I shared, about hyperthreads. So when we get to that, he's also proposing that topic, but I don't think he'll be on today. He's in Germany and he could cut in or he could not, uh, but I'm not aware that he'll be with us. Uh, Nonetheless, Bob Premack has had a lot to offer. Jerry has had good things. So that'll be a group effort. The first one, it's a quickie, but it's an important one if you're looking for Photox. Uh, right about before New Year's, uh, Mike decided he'd really better change the name. And he changed it by just changing the first X Photox to a C, which in my brain makes it much more confusing. But we used to say it was Botox for your pictures, Photox. Apparently, the Botox people's lawyer complained. I didn't know they owned OXX as part of their name. But in any case, that was one issue. There were other ones where people were getting confused because more and more other things have liked using the name Photox. They haven't been photo programs, but they've been confusions. So bottom line is, like it or not, you now look for Photox with a CX on it. And that's all there is to that. Hopefully, other paths will be getting cut off bit by bit. I've seen a lot of 404 error messages when looking for it with the double X. So be aware of the change and pass it on. That's about it. Let's see, you wanted to go on to my next one, and it's not my next one, it's everyone's. So I propose to go to my third one down here, host. It ties in very nicely with our early, maybe pre-meeting discussion about getting into a way to put our stuff on a server that's a little different than the way we've been doing it. turns out there's a FOSS group that's been kind of bothered by the fact that you can do anything in FOSS, and the FOSS folks are making it easier all the time for beginners by making it easy for beginners and attractive for general users, uh, except for servers. Host is up and running, and I heard about this from somebody else secondhand, but I hear directly. Rudra Saraswat is our now, I think, almost 14-year-old Linux expert from India. His English is about perfect, and he's done a great job with a few of his projects. And one of his messages is he just moved to a server of his own running FOSS host, and he likes it. Now, he's a Linux expert, but the message is this is all geared to make server management easy from home, easy from work if you're not a pro, etc. So if anyone's ready to look at it now, we might talk next month about whether I don't particularly want to start a server of my own at this point, but we may, as a group, and other users in the group may. So take a look at Host. You've got a link there. You can download it, or you can look at a good video, or you can try it online on someone else's server and see how it would be on your computer. Ain't that interesting? Now I'll go back to the one under hot hardware, effectiveness of hyperthreads. Again, Mike Cornelison is opening the conversation, and I sent around some information on that we can post to add to other things. I'm ready to step back to just say that other people out there are deciding that the hyperthreads they've been using as the default for your Linux and your Windows and some other things are having second thoughts. That's where I came in on it, and I'm passing it on. Maybe Bob would like to begin, and I know Sherry Feldman, among others, has something to say. Take it.
Okay. Well, there is something that can be said. First of all, let me see if I can screen share, and I want to simply bring attention to an article that sort of gives a little overview. Let's see about sharing. Okay, and I want to share the entire screen. That one, share. Okay, I'm going to go to a new tab now, and everybody sees the article?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to get rid of that. Okay, and it's just an article that explains basically what hyperthreading is. And it's just a way of making one CPU core appear to be more like several. But there's more to it than that. You would want to use hyperthreading if you find that your cores are frequently idle, or that you're not using all your cores and all your memory for all the instructions. Some programs and some operating systems are written in such a way that they can break up the instruction set and process either sequentially or non-sequentially in parallel. And what this does is it allows each core to handle more than one memory segment at a time. I want to show something in my entire screen where you can actually use a nice little widget called gkrelum. And this on my desktop, have I lost everybody, or are you still with me?
I'm here.
Okay, so I haven't closed it. If you see at the right-hand side of my desktop, I have this widget, which has several little windows in it. Those are called Krells. Each one of these is a hyperthread. My processor is a Core i5 12th gen. It does not have the P cores and E cores, which I'll discuss a little bit later, but it has 6 physical cores. And then each core is divided into 2 hyperthreads. In a CPU, you don't want to go beyond that number, 2 hyperthreads per core, because if you do, just a minute, let me see if I can get you guys back. All right. If you do try to go beyond about 2 hyperthreads per physical core, you lose efficiency. And in fact, for many things, including what Mike Cornelison was testing, you lose efficiency even if you have 2 hyperthreads per core. A physical core, when it's divided into 2 hyperthreads, is only running at 70% efficiency, as Mike very vividly showed us. And even when you're running those hyperthreads, if you're not fully occupying the 2 hyperthreads per core and the memory that they each have, you're not going to get much benefit, and your performance may be hurt. Some gamers have issues with hyperthreading too. It depends on how your game is written. Virtual machines do not generally use hyperthreads. Each virtual machine in a business server, an enterprise server, is assigned to specific cores and specific resources. And this is why the Xeon processors, and before them the Itanium processors, didn't do hyperthreading. There are also security issues. It is known that if you don't have hyperthreading, you are not as vulnerable to some of the Spectre types of issues that can hijack not just your software these days, but also your hardware. Your firmware could be hijacked, and that can be a real mess. So Intel may be moving away from hyperthreading, and they may be moving toward more cores. There is also a difference between, and I am going to show a tab, which there is a difference between Intel versus Apple. Apple is now using ARM, and ARM is not a complete instruction set chip. It's a reduced instruction set chip, or RISC. And there are big differences in certain kinds of performance. The M1, M2, and M3 processors, as this article would tell you, have multiple cores, and they have a lot of cores, but each core is not very high performance. They do not hyperthread in the CPU cores, but they have GPU cores built into the chip, and they have a huge number of GPU cores. GPUs do hyperthread, and they should, because what they're doing is vector processing or math code processing. That benefits a lot from hyperthreading. And you could have 4 hyperthreads per core in a GPU, and you would still gain an advantage by doing that. And what does this do? It means if you're doing video processing, if you're in the movie industry, if you're doing raw images like you might do in Photox, big raw images, and you're making global changes and you want to refresh rapidly, you're going to want to offload the processing from the CPU to GPUs. And GPUs also use not the system RAM, but video RAM. VRAM is also optimized for use with multi-threading, whereas system RAM is more general purpose. And so, again, what benefit you get depends on your use case. And one other thing about performance cores versus efficiency cores. 12th, 13th, and 14th gen Intel chips now have some big cores and some little cores. And the little cores are lower powered. The bigger cores are higher powered. And the bigger cores will benefit almost everybody, but some gamers won't benefit from the efficiency cores, the smaller cores, because the games are not yet optimized for them. And so companies like Asus with their ROG gaming laptops have been recommending that for some games you might want to turn off the efficiency cores so as to force the performance cores to do most of the work. There's a concept called parking, where a core, when it's not used, might simply go idle. And again, with G-Krellum, you can see whether or not any of your cores are parking. Some operating systems, some settings will allow parking, and that also increases the efficiency. So there's a lot of things beyond just what Mike was showing us in his tests. A lot of stuff. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Oh, technical, and for those who are ready for it, a very fascinating topic to try to understand as well as Bob appears to.
Yeah.
Jerry, do you have something to add?
Yeah. Earlier, you were talking about some of the errors and stuff like that, and the attacks like Spectre. One of our BLU members is an AMD engineer, and he did a talk. Bob might have been at that talk where he talked about Spectre and things like that. And he was very generic because he couldn't really give any proprietary information. But he is a CPU designer, so he works in that space. I think he's more in the field of efficiency and stuff like that, power saving, and turning off cores when they're not being used and stuff like that. He talks about that. But essentially, we did a talk on a BLU, which should be up on our video. Now, my presentation is going to be very short. And essentially, Bob did about 90% of what really needed. So let me just show my presentation real quick. And I'm going to be very generic. Okay. Okay, does everybody see this as a shared screen?
Yes.
Okay. Again, what?
Jerry, you muted yourself. Jerry?
Okay,
Oh,
I'm back on. Okay. Again, I just wanted to quickly say processes versus threads versus hyperthreads. I've worked in all three areas. And again, I think most of us understand what a process is. It's essentially, if you open a window, that's going to be a separate process. A thread is similar. Usually, if you open up a tab on a browser, that's going to be a separate thread. But the thread generally shares the resource of the parent. A hyperthread is a way for a single CPU to perform parallelism. And I think I have that hyperthreading page that Bob had at the bottom here. And you can see what your CPU is, what threads you have in your CPU with LS CPU, You can cat/proc CPU info or use DMI decode or HW info to dynamically use your GUI. And let me stop and reshare. I want to share a window. And a system monitor is good too to see what you're doing. At the top, you can see the CPUs, the 8 CPUs, and I've got 4 cores. So it's going to show each hyperthread. Now, when we worked at, I can stop sharing now. When we worked with the Itanium did have hyperthreading. And we decided to turn the hyperthreading off for the project we were working on. Because Jonathan found actually several bugs in it. Now, that was several years ago. And that was when I was working at Compaq. And that was the earlier 2000s. That was a great project we had. But working on the Itanium was good. The Itanium was a brand new chip at that time. And it was a little bit overkill, I think. And that was before AMD came out with their 64-bit chip. And the Intel and the AMD 64 chip became popular back around that time. That's what killed the Itanium. Itanium had actually 128-bit registers. So it was a pretty decent chip, but it didn't benchmark as fast as we would like. And that killed one of my projects. Anyway, that's it. But hyperthreading, one of the things I did want to mention, because way back when I did work earlier on the alpha on threading, on CPU threading, what I had to do was to write some code that would schedule the output from the compiler or the output from the assembler. And what it did really was it had a table of all the timings of every CPU instruction. And what it would try to do is reorder the instructions so that a slow instruction would not block faster instructions. And so that and so you wanted to make sure that the fast instructions could be done without being blocked by the slow instruction. So we had to look at all the registers being used. We had to look at all the memory. We didn't have to really worry about memory because the slow instructions were the memory instructions. But we had to do that and work with it got pretty complicated doing that. But again, I wrote part of the assembler for Windows, for Windows NT, but for on the Alpha. But this was really as a Unix assembler that we designed to get out, because the assembler that was running with the compiler and the compiler system was encumbered, and we wanted to get rid of that encumbrance. So we did that. But then Digital came out with the EV6 version of the Alpha chip, which did out of order fetching, which solved the problem. So we didn't have to reorder, that the chip actually did the reordering. But the whole key with the hyperthreading in a CPU is when one thread is blocked with a slow instruction, other instructions can run using the CPU. But that, again, has problems. of its own. And that's why some programs work better, some don't. And some operating systems know they're dealing with hyperthreads. So they know that this is the real CPU thread, this is the fake CPU thread. And the operating system can actually optimize that itself too. Linux knows about those. Anyway, that's about what I wanted to say, because Bob had a lot of information.
All right. What I might try to summarize here is that these are things that the ordinary user hopes have been done effectively behind the scenes by people like Jerry and others who write the compilers and write the programs and write the systems in ways that automate these kinds of turn it on, turn it off, so that hyper-threading and things of that type don't get in your way as a user. I like to think of myself as more a user than anything else within this Linux world. And I'm glad that there are people who are concerned with the underlying technicalities so that we who are users can enjoy our experience and suffer as few problems as we possibly can. And going forward, Linux appears to be on the rise, and partly because these kinds of issues have been solved by brilliant minds. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, I'm going to share back my copy of the agenda.
I'll get one other
Yes.
thing I'd like to add. There is a concept called tuning, so that it's a one-time only operation where you just take a look like I did with G. Krellum and see what's going on. And if you want to do a little tweaking and fiddling around, gamers do this a lot. You will just tune things, and gamers might overclock a little, things like that.
And as that happens, people get better for performance for their particular niche of the computing world. And again, thanks to those who understand it and can explain it to the rest of us. Okay, sharing. I'll get back to my window of the agenda. And there we go. All right, we have done the hot software, and we have done the realities of the underlying hyperthreading. So I'll just stick in this petabyte of storage article. Now, my computer is not a new computer. It has 500 gigabyte drive, which is not a big drive. A gigabyte is thousands and thousands and thousands of storage cells so that I can have a bunch of programs running at the same time. And I can store the ones that I don't want to use right now. And I won't run out of space. My files aren't big. I don't make movies, so I don't have to worry about the huge files that movie development can require. But if you are going to do huge storage, gigabytes are no longer enough. You need what are next beyond gigabytes. And there are hard drives out there that can store terabytes, which is, I think, the next step up. That's 1,000 times bigger than a gigabyte. And then, as pie in the sky, there's the next size up after terabytes. Terabytes are a good thing for those people who do movies, and who store movies and who want to have their own library of movies. But petabytes are 1,000 times bigger than those terabytes. And petabytes have apparently been tamed by this group. It's a laboratory design. It's not available for sale yet, but it might be in the fairly near future when you think about how quickly things come to market these days, as opposed to the time lag that was once involved. This group has apparently figured out a way to make multiple storage layers on a disk the size of a DVD. Some of you probably still have DVDs, to store a petabyte on that DVD size disk. I'm pretty sure that it's designed to be a one-way storage, not to be rewritten. So it wouldn't be used for your active day-to-day thing. But if you were accumulating a library of fixed versions of movies, things that you didn't expect to change, a petabyte of storage might make it possible for you to never have to do another backup again. I don't know how long-lived these disks might be. That wasn't in the article, but I recommend you read the article if you're interested in next generation storage. Any comments about petabytes?
The only thing I wonder is, will they fall victim to the same white spot syndrome that DVDs now fall victim to? If you write a DVD and store it for a long, long time, it'll show up with white spots and some of the data may not be readable. I hope these things have gotten past that problem.
That I do not know.
It depends on the quality of the manufacturer too.
True.
Yeah, Sabine Hossenfelder has a YouTube on petabytes on a DVD.
Oh, neat. Can you send that link along so that we can add it to this one in the agenda?
Yeah, let me
The final?
set that. Okay, I've got that on my phone right now. So
Okay. There's no rush. We'll just add it at the end when the "this was the meeting" version goes up.
Yeah.
Thank you. From a hot internet perspective, we've had UnoHost as a proposal for us. And what that does is to bring up the question of how the internet works. Again, we've talked about this in the past. Somebody's not muted. I'm hearing myself echoing. Let me see if I can check out who's not muted. Well, maybe they've done it themselves. Okay. We normally think of a screen like the one I'm showing right now as a web page. But a lot of people who are doing today's internet think in terms of what are known as web apps. And if you are a Mastodon user or a user of many other services online, what you get is not a simple page, but a responsive experience. That means you log into the server that is giving you the experience, and you get a live screen that changes while you watch, and you can leave your own information. You can add a post of your own, as in the case of Mastodon, which this represents right here. I can enter a new message here, and while I was pointing to that, 2 new messages came in on my home timeline next door to the message entry space. So this page isn't really a page so much as it is a full-fledged application running within my Firefox browser. And that's kind of a neat thing when you think about it. It's well beyond what we started with fixed single-purpose pages. And those web apps are here to stay. They take a good deal more effort to make, and they are sometimes not all that well made, but when they're good, they're good. So if you want to read more about the discrepancy between just web pages and what today's users come to expect on their iPhones and their Samsungs and other quick look at it devices, as opposed to make it yourself and post it, web apps are the current wave. Anybody have objections to web apps or some comments about how good they are? Apparently, that's not a topic of great interest. Okay.
I'm sorry, we were having
Go on.
extra steps to get our
Sure.
microphone on.
Aha.
I messed around a little with Mastodon and I found it too confusing and annoying because I couldn't seem to get back to things that I wanted to look at, and things kept changing too fast for me to pay attention to them, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's a matter of old brain.
Dick here. I propose that we learn more about it next month. Mastodon, how to use it.
I agree with Jill that it is a thing you need to experience, but that it's a fast moving experience. And that can be a bit disturbing. Now, there are other web apps, for example, the ones that are games online. Those are full applications. When you go to play the game, it is as if you had loaded it onto your own computer as a separate application. And not knowing that it isn't on your computer is not an issue. You go in your browser. Your browser is just the platform, the way your computer is for a locally run program. And the application need not be too complex, but a game might be complex. It's that the information is live. This thing we're using right now, Jitsi Meet, is an application. It's a web app more than it is a web page. I'm talking, my face is moving. Ed has just said, okay, I want to speak, and I'm seeing that request and I'm about to accede to it. But here we are talking back and forth live because of an application that is running inside our browser. And this is a powerful thing about the new web. That's really
Agreed.
the point, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, Ed.
Okay. Regarding the issue that Jill has, if you log into your Mastodon account and go into preferences, On the appearance tab, there is a checkbox for slow mode, and the description is hide timeline updates behind a click instead of automatically scrolling the feed. So that might solve her problem.
That's a good point.
I do have one other one, and that is that in general, the topics are of less interest to me than on some of the other social media platforms that I'm on. So I tend to spend more time on the other ones because
that's because you haven't opened one for what you want.
yeah, right. I don't want to be the leader. I want to be the follower.
There you go. One thing I will comment about as far as Mastodon is concerned is that it is not monolithic. And that's, I think, one of its benefits, but in this context, one of its detriments. With Twitter, which is the earlier name of the now X platform, that was a place that everybody, quote, everybody gathered in order to share their news and their likes and dislikes. Because it was common and everybody was there, you could depend on the groups that developed to be more or less persistent. It is not yet common to people to be on the federated services, of which Mastodon is a single example. The Mastodon web app is successful and is growing, but it isn't yet there to the point that people will want to do their meeting places as part of Mastodon's structure. And Jill is going to find that to be a problem for a foreseeable future, I'm afraid. It's not there yet. It's still new. And until a whole bunch of people decide that former Twitter is no longer viable, or they decide to abandon Instagram and or TikTok and or name your social platform, Mastodon will just be one of the gang. I like it, but I'm admitting to the world right this minute that I don't use it nearly as often as I used to, as far as dropping a post in place. I used to do a daily post, but now I'm not there. Bob Premack, go ahead.
As far as web apps are concerned, if you've ever used Google Docs or Sheets or anything like that, or even if you've used maybe Microsoft 365 or any of these others, even if you use Gmail, those are also web apps. So almost all of us have used them.
Can you raise your hand?
Go ahead.
Actually, just a comment that I never even got up to using the app formerly known as Twitter. So,
And that's a good thing.
And I'm glad.
One of the reasons we mention Twitter as a maybe not so great platform is that it has apparently become a hateful place for a lot of different people and has a reputation for gatherings of more snide and bad stuff than good stuff. Jill, I think, is eager to find a group of like-minded gardeners and plant people. And if you're being told that you're stupid because you like plants, you're not going to want to go and talk about your stuff. And that seems not to be the case in Mastodon, because it is very well moderated by most of the people who run a server hosting the Mastodon app. And you can find servers that are about many single topics, and those would be a place to find, if you could find a place for gardening, for example. I'm not sure there is one at this stage, but there might in the future be one. Okay, let me zip back to my view of the agenda and see where we are. Okay, we have come to the section of our meeting which has grown from just a single item or two to being a dominant section of the agenda. There are people in our world who are not doing nice things, so we need computer security. We need privacy, and we need the freedom to do what we want to do, not what someone else wants us to do. Our privacy is being invaded by those people who take our information and sell it, meaning, Olga looked at that picture of a moose. Let us make sure that he gets all the ads about moose in the future, because he must be interested in watching a moose movie. So if I watch something on YouTube about that, my information will go into the algorithm that judges what offerings they make and what suggestions they make on the YouTube channel. Well, then I will see more moose things in the near future, perhaps. I do watch many YouTube videos, and for the most part, I get good suggestions because of that. I watch a couple of electronics people who are teaching me how to do electronic projects with my what's it called? I'm drawing the blank again, as I often do. I'll come back to it. Anyway, the first item on the list is about a person who gives YouTube videos out of the goodness of heart, although I think he makes some money from having lots and lots of followers. Matthias Wandel is a Canadian YouTube person. He is an electronics engineer by training. He has built lots and lots and lots of very interesting projects, mostly out of wood. He built his own organ. He has built all his own woodworking machines, including a tabletop saw, a band saw, a smoothing plane, one of the ones with the rapidly moving cutter. They're all homemade. But he's also doing a lot of electronic stuff at the same time to support his work. And his channel was recently hacked. These two articles, these two videos, are his explanation of how his life was turned upside down and how he got things back in order. I don't think it's appropriate to play them as videos here in the meeting, but I do hope you'll consider looking at
I think we'll get Al back shortly, but he has frozen.
Are you off?
It would appear that Alga does not have any burrs. So
Yeah, on a similar thing, one of the judges on YouTube, Michigan judge, was kicked off of YouTube because her channel got hacked with porn.
I was apparently dropped. Am I back?
yes, same thing happened to me earlier.
Okay. Where did I drop? I don't know.
Matthias,
You were on the Matthias videos.
Had I gone very far?
Yes, you
Okay.
had told us that something had happened and recommended we watch them.
Then I think I'll leave it at that because much of what I said was redundant, I'm sure. So
okay,
I'm going to go back to sharing my
yeah. And I just,
screen here for the agenda.
similar note, Judge DeSanto in Michigan, her YouTube channel was hacked for porn, and she was kicked off of YouTube. And this is a sitting judge,
Oh my.
Wyandotte, Michigan.
That's a horrible experience, I'm sure. Fortunately, we aren't popular enough to have been hacked, I guess. Thank you, Dennis. Okay, let me then retreat and hope I don't get kicked again. I think Ed put this up. Do you have any additional comments about that, Ed?
No, I was just going through Ars Technica, TechCrunch to see if there was any interesting articles. So I just posted the links to it. But that particular one there is really good to know because you reading the comments, it's just totally incredible what some of these insurance companies are doing.
Many of these with the ad mark were put up by Ed. Anything in that group that you want to particularly comment about?
Nope, just for general information. Nope.
Okay. In which case, our recommendation is that each of the people interested in the topic do click through and find out the information that is being offered by those.
I would like to say one thing about the AI and the insurance companies. The core problem there was that they were using AI generated models of how long somebody should require hospitalization or treatment. And they were using that to deny claims and kick people out. And it was sometimes people who were still very sick. And the federal government finally said to, I think it was a California insurer, you cannot use this AI model. And there was this one company that is supplying the AI model to a large number of different insurance companies. And the AI model is completely whacked. It's just totally hallucinating.
Dick here. I'd like to add that in addition to the healthcare coverage, the related issues, and thank you, Ed, for putting one of them on. I've really been enjoying looking through them. Recently, someone flew cross country to attend a relative's funeral, and booking the flight, an AI helper for the company pointed out that he'd get a greatly reduced fare because it was for a funeral. And he took it. He flew, came back, found he was billed for the entire amount, and the difference was a lot of money. he sued, and the airline said, well, it's not their fault. It was the AI that did it. And the judge said, that's quite imaginative. And he got some $800 back for it. I hope after the legal fees. So it's spreading in a lot of directions and expected to spread in a lot more because it can address so many people at once that it can easily and attractively replace 50 employees. And big companies are doing that right now. It's cost effective. As for the employees, well, they're expendable. They get a little retirement money or something, or they can go on welfare and we can pay them. So AI is already taking over in a lot of places way before it's competent. It looks
I
competent until it backfires.
Yeah, has anybody been to the Comcast website and tried to get help lately? They have just put in AI and replaced their frontline tech support people.
Ooh.
Well, they were pretty poor before.
Yeah, but the AI really does run you around in circle after circle. Finally, you get to say, okay, I've done all that. Now can you send the technician?
Yeah, I've done that in a couple of different places too.
Just remember that old Spanish saying, ay, ay, ay.
Okay. It sounds as if we all have our own AI experiences.
Or the
Excuse me.
Jewish version, oi, oi, oi.
I'm going to drop to the bottom of the list and come up where it says facial recognition vending machine, and just make the comment that I can't understand why a university would install a vending machine, or why a company with a vending machine for snacks would care to have a video recording machine that did facial recognition. I can't even imagine why that would be there. I have a feeling that the University of Waterloo is not supporting it, meaning, oh, we want to know who's buying snacks late at night. But why would a company even design a vending machine that had facial recognition? Can anybody suggest a rationale?
To sell the information to AI companies.
And also they may want to know the demographics of who's buying what. This was probably so that the Mars Candy Company can find out what kinds of people are buying what different products. But it's not the right way to go about it. By the way, there are some of these smart TVs that while you're watching them, they're watching you.
I believe you.
I can imagine that it was a student project to see if it could be done, and it got put in the wrong place.
Actually, minus the facial recognition, but doing a what do you call it? Videotaping of what you could catch the people who are jiggering the machine so that they get free candy.
That I could possibly understand, possibly. But it sounds like
on the same topic, but not for candy machines. I understand that the front door watch to see who's coming gadgets, about half of them can report back to somewhere, and they're the half that are made by two Chinese manufacturing companies under a variety of names.
Waterloo is actually taking that down.
Oh, yes. Yes. that was in the article, and I just I couldn't believe it when I saw the heading and read the article with great interest, but never really figured out why someone would want that. And I think I'm enlightened a bit. Thank you. All right. I don't know how many of our audience are bloggers. Blogging used to be one of the things that various people with a point to make did. But I do have a blog, and once had a blog that was an education blog shared with another couple of teachers. But my blog now has become just a place that I post an occasional rhyme or poem of some kind. It's not a much of an opinion place, but my blog is using WordPress as wordpress.com rather than having my own server running the WordPress software on my own. That could be done, but I have not wanted to do it because WordPress.com is free, and I have appreciated that, not having to deal with routine upgrades to the software and the underlying server software, which is PHP software. But recently, WordPress.com announced that it was going to allow users' posts in all their blogging done on WordPress.com to be used by third-party groups for large language model training. Fortunately, if you have a blog, you can opt out of doing it. I don't know if anybody here has a blog, but this article talks about logging, changing your blog's settings as part of the WordPress.com settings general for your particular workspace, and making your blog not part of, it's this one right in here, this check mark block, prevent third-party sharing of whatever your blog site is. You have to check that one off, and it tells that it will not share that to the large language model training. I have done that to my blog. Not that it matters, but I have done it. So if you are a blogger out there and you use WordPress.com, go for it.
Algot,
Yes.
I'd mentioned there's something else wrong in here, and it's that the default is to not give you privacy.
Oh,
You
yes.
have to take an action to get privacy. That's backwards.
Yeah, I agree.
Used to be backwards. We go shopping now and again on eBay, and there's a new trick I don't think eBay planned on, but a lot of people are starting to use it. If you're selling computers, you put them all in one ad, and you have a little box you can click on which one you want to see in detail. And then when it asks for price for the generic ad, instead of computers, they add one computer case. And that's the price that shows up, looking like it's for a bunch of computers. It'd be $30 instead of $1,500 for the ones in the ad. And just deceptive. And it's the same problem. It's feeding you reasons not to have you in charge as you begin to do the looking. But it's a kind of false advertising. And that's what these defaults are that go the wrong way. It's another issue in the same place.
No doubt. Now, there are some videos out there that have been made with special effects over the years, with some person in a monster costume and walking along. And back when it was Frankenstein's Monster by Lon Chaney, pretty much everybody knew there was somebody in a person inside that costume acting. Then along came movies like Terminator, in which Arnie was a person until he became a metal skeleton, so that the Terminator was a character of some awesome fancy metal, but no skin anymore. And that was creepy. And then in Terminator 2, they generated some kind of liquid Terminator who played, there was a human character playing part of it, but then it turned liquid, and it was really awesome special effects. But now we're getting to the point that it is possible to generate video that does not have any actor involved, that does not merely trace the actions of a suit worn by a person to do the gyrations of their karate moves. Generative video is out. There is an example in the Sora generative video that I think I will try to play in hopes that it does what it looks like. My wife was not impressed by this one, and it's not very long, but I'm going to try to play it anyway. I'm going to expand it up.
Can you drop? Oh, good.
Can everybody see the video?
Yes.
I mean, the character?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to push play. And that's it. There's not much going on. But in that 17 seconds, there was no person. That was not a person in the helmet. That was not a person in the cloth hat. These are not scenes shot in a studio. This last one that's visible now. This was entirely generated by artificial intelligence, generative. And while it isn't much and would only be perhaps useful as a pre-release YouTube trailer for an upcoming movie, good grief. The prompt that generated the video was a movie trailer featuring the adventures of the 30-year-old spaceman wearing a red wool knitted motorcycle helmet with a blue sky, salt desert in cinematic style, shot on 35 millimeter film with vivid colors. That prompt, that text, was what was fed to the generative video tool. I don't know what tool it was. Maybe it was the Sora that's mentioned in the article. I don't know that this represents today or tomorrow, but I do wonder, as Dick said, if this is going to be capable in 5 years, 10 years of completely destroying the movie industry.
When I first met the internet, I heard it called the web of 1,000 lies.
Mm.
Nowadays, we have ex-presidents that can do that. It's the web of 1,000,000 lies, and that's now long obsolete. We're into the pet accounts, and we've got machines now that can generate their own at rapid speed, including full videos. I'll send along a link that may want to go with this video later about irresponsible, well-meant AI videos. We're just beginning to meet the trouble, and that's computers too.
We have met the enemy, and he is us.
Oh,
Amen.
From your mentioning the Terminator, I have an important warning to share. It might save somebody's life. When you are being chased by a pack of taxidermists, do not play dead.
Oh, thank you, Dick. Thank you for that. There are a couple more in here about generative videos, and I do recommend that you consider reading these individual articles in any order you see fit. Some of you may know the person who is mentioned in this article, Tyler Perry. You may be aware of his movies at any rate. He has an $800 million studio expansion for his vast production system that he's successfully put together. He has decided that he'd better hold up spending that $800 million because of this Sora from OpenAI that I just showed you one video from. A good deal more than one person's salary may be at stake if he's willing to suspend the development of his expansion. That's quite an astounding concern expressed by just one person, but he's got the money to make videos and is wondering if it's worth the effort. His quote is, these will touch every corner of our industry. And he probably knows what he's talking about. Okay. For those who want to experiment, if you are looking for still image material, there is a new generator for images, not the moving ones, but still images. There's a piece of software that's been developed called Koala, and it apparently is fast enough that you could run it on a Raspberry Pi, which is a tiny ARM computer. I might just put this on there if I can and generate all the rest of my puzzle images for the near future. Good luck. Okay. Software companies, Mozilla is downsizing as it refocuses on Firefox and, AI. Good luck to us. Firefox is the browser I'm using for this particular screen, and I use it pretty much all day, every day to get to the information that I want to see. And if they start to muck with AI to help me see what I want to, and it isn't what I want to see, I may have to switch away from Firefox, but I'm not too sure if that leaves me much choice but the Chromium There's not much else out there. Anybody else have a thought on that?
I think Ed would say Vivaldi.
Yes, Vivaldi is a service as well as just a browser. Do you know, Ed, what it is using for its browser engine?
It is using Chromium.
So it's really, it's nicely different, but it is still a Google product.
I think it's using Chromium as its engine. Ed seems to have dropped. Oh, Ed's here.
No, he's here.
Well, it uses Blink, which is a variant on Chromium.
Okay. The
Fine.
issue
know.
that I have heard is that if we seed all engines to one core, then the internet becomes dependent on that single underlying processing agent. And no matter how pretty you make your separate tool, it's not going to be really that different, and it will be under the control of its original developer. And then you have very little choice, and that is the antithesis of what I think Linux is all about, an open source FOSS as a way of life.
Precisely. I have a different suggestion. I'm not sure how good it is, but it might be quite good. For web page design and maintenance, I've used something that's one of the early FOSS ones, and that's SeaMonkey Composer. It's updated, it's kept modern, and it's supposed to be quite good for that sort of privacy and more. And it is SeaMonkey is not Composer. SeaMonkey is a whole set of the tools you lean on the internet. It's got its own Firefox equivalent. In fact, Firefox precedent grown somewhat differently. And it's got its own email, etc., etc. Maybe 6 main packages and a lot of add-ons. Just take a look at SeaMonkey, and we sure like the Composer side of it. So might be worth a look.
Yeah, the Composer is one of the few WYSIWYG web page designer apps available.
And
It
very solid.
has a few problems, but it's for those of us who aren't
I'm not-
HTML coders.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, well, if you want to change HTML code without knowing it, yes, that's true. You don't have to go there. Anyway, its web browser might be of interest.
Okay, thank you. I think we need to keep our general group focus on the issues here in this computer security, privacy, and freedom topic. But I do hope it doesn't become our only thing we talk about, because that would be all negative. Oh dear. Anyway, there's apparently some kind of hardware called a Flipper Zero that I know nothing about, but it sounds like it is capable of duplicating the fob that you carry around that is required before your key.
Ew.
There's mine holding up against my face. You might be able to see it. I have a key, but my daughter's car only has a fob. So that if someone's able to duplicate the code that is inside here, they can put their fob in their pocket and unlock her car and drive it off. If it's just this which you need to get into your car and drive, then the flipper apparently is not something you want in the hands of a person who wants to steal cars.
My
Well,
phone is my car key.
Mm-hmm.
well, regarding this flipper, it doesn't just send; it also can read the codes and pick them up. They used to have something like this that could pick up your garage door opener code, and then they could open your garage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now they can do. Now they can unlock your car. It is illegal to do that, and it's illegal for similar reasons to why you're not allowed to build one of these things for garage door openers. If you're caught with a device like this, a cloning device on your person, in this country, I think you would probably go to jail. In Canada, they haven't yet apparently nailed down exactly how they're going to handle it, but they may want to do something like ban the import, sale, and manufacture.
Mm-hmm.
But this thing is open source, including the hardware, so people know how to do it, how to build it. So they would have to make it illegal to possess one.
Sounds like the definition of what a machine gun is and what a bump stock is that has recently gone through the Supreme Court, as I understand it.
Or
And
these 3D printed guns.
the 3D printed guns. Yeah. Oh boy.
We have a group member who I think has done a little toying around with 3D printed guns and building his own.
Oh my.
He lives in a state where it's not illegal.
Mm-hmm. Well, my friends, these are things I both want to know exist, but I don't want to know how they are used.
Yeah.
Not from a personal point of view, anyway.
But anyway, this is not the same device that was used to steal Kias. That's a different matter.
Right, right. Okay. I think we have gone through the majority of the major agenda items. Does anybody have other things to add?
Science on State Street.
Yes, that's in our questions and answers. Yes. We have, as we have done in the past, signed up for Science on State Street, which is a production going on at Framingham State University, not college anymore. And it is a thing that we are very happy to do as a presentation. I am presenting, I am planning to go to the event. We have a table, we have a couple of chairs, we have electricity that the group provides, and unfortunately this year our application didn't get in until we were on the outside rather than the inside. Now, that might change as we get closer to the event, but right now that's what the situation is.
Elgott,
Yes, Dick.
at that event, do we have Wi-Fi?
That is to be determined. It is listed as available, yes.
I've
But-
been in the parking lots. I specifically tested to make sure Wi-Fi was available in the O'Connor parking lot, and it is.
Bingo. Thank you.
Bingo. Yep.
I was up there this past week.
Thank you,
Sunday.
Jerry, for checking. Science on State Street is linked there if you want more information about the event itself. But do we have 2 or 3 other people who are interested in being there. We've
Joe
had,
and I plan to attend.
thank
Yeah, I
you,
plan to attend.
thank you.
Yeah,
I assume the arcade machine is welcome.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
As long as it doesn't do facial recognition.
and I'm planning to be there as well.
Oh, wonderful. That certainly gives us enough people to make the event viable for us. I plan to come with my own chair so that maybe it would be a good idea if we have 5 or 6 people to have more than the supplied chairs available. I'm going to bring my camping chair. And one table may be big enough, but I did in the application put in for 2, and they said they would notify in the next couple of weeks whether they're able to meet some of the special requests that we had. Any other comments on the Science on State Street?
Yeah, I will be bringing my laptop, and Ed can use it if he wants to.
Okay, good, good. Now, I thought I had one more item on my list, but I don't see it on the agenda. I'd like to go back to the very top to point again to the introductory slide talk video, not video, excuse me, the presentation. I think we need to make an updatable version of it that can be shared from our BLU site. Thank you, Jerry, for allowing us to share the BLU server for our NatickFOSS.org website. But I think all of the information that's in that needs to be something that we can update on a regular basis, along with putting it in an accessible form that may or may not be open, LibreOffice as the core. Any comments or thoughts to pursue that?
Let's talk offline and see.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Dennis, by any chance, do you have a game to donate to us this month?
No, I do not.
All right.
I will say, however, I was contacted by someone about the arcade machine.
Yeah.
So they are working on putting together an open source arcade machine, so all the instructions are available. I just posted the link to their website.
Oh, good.
So they want something that's easy to knock together.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like that. Thank you, and good luck with the participation in their effort. Anybody have any other last 10-minute things to bring up? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my agenda then and bring myself back into the main field screen here. Thank you all for being very active participants here today. Gloria, John, I didn't get the chance to greet you before, but I'm glad that both of you are here. Thank you for coming. And joining us in our monthly exercise of tearing Linux down and hopefully building it back up in the minds of those who participate and those who will watch us online later. Thank you all for joining us, and I wish you a good March. Our next meeting is the 4th of April. Anybody looking forward to that month? No fooling.
Well, definitely.
All right.
First of all, my birthday is the day after.
Oh, go Dick.
And second of all, I will be celebrating my holy birthday.
Oh,
I'll be turning 88, and 4 holes are better than none.
And we're planning to enjoy the solar eclipse.
oh, you're headed up there?
Way up in Maine.
Oh boy.
A part of Maine that we think is in Canada. We might come back with a photograph, but I expect you'll have already seen some by then.
I hope you will enjoy with good protection for your eyes so that you can come back to us in whole.
I actually bought a pack of official eclipse glasses and then lost them, and so had to buy another pack of them.
And then found them.
And then I found, of course, within a week, I found the other batch. So we have enough for him and his whole family.
Oh, well, wonderful.
If that's what eBay is. Let us know.
That's what eBay is for.
Well, if you're buying them now, they might be out of stock.
That's what I mean. You could sell yours.
Oh, I see. Too much trouble. I've done eBay selling.
Yeah.
We'll have a cloudy day and night, and we'll get all kinds of better pictures from elsewhere and from outer space and everything in between.
Right.
But it's the trip and the experience.
And we'll be with friends on a lake way up in Maine.
Sounds lovely.
Okay, we'll see you all next month.
The best of luck.
Best of luck. See you all in April.
Okay.
Very well.
Okay. Bye.